The day after Claire's funeral, the house felt wrong. Not quiet, off. Like it was still holding its breath, waiting for her to walk through the door, purse swinging on her arm, scarf looped twice around her neck like she always did. She was hit by a truck 3 blocks from our street. The police said it was instant. She stepped into the crosswalk. Driver ran a red light. No drugs. No alcohol. Just a tragic accident. Everyone kept calling it that. A tragic accident. I let them. I nodded through the casseroles and the hugs and the goddamn whispering. He's holding up so well. They seemed so happy. What a loss. But here's the thing no one says out loud. Sometimes, grief is mixed with confusion. And confusion can rot you from the inside. Because when I came back from the funeral home that night, every light in the house was on. Every single one. Upstairs. Basement. Even the attic bulb, the one that only works when you hit the switch just right. And Claire? She was obsessive about lights. Always following me around turning them off. Always scolding me like I was a child. We're not made of money, Ethan. So no, she didn't leave the lights on. Someone else did. I didn't tell anyone. Not even our daughter, Sophie. She's 12, and the only reason I haven't completely shattered. She was staying with Claire's sister that night. Thank God. She didn't have to walk into that glowing silence. I walked the house, room by room. Nothing stolen, nothing broken. But in Claire's office, the door was unlocked. That door had a key, and she always locked it. I stepped in, flicked the light, already on, and saw it. A single yellow file folder on the desk, labeled in Claire's handwriting. C. Marshall Private. Claire's maiden name. She never used it anymore. Not since the wedding. Her passport, her ID, even her email, all under my name. Claire Whitmore. But this folder. Inside, receipts. Letters. A passport photo I'd never seen before, hair cut short, dyed black. And one document that made my knees buckle. A rental agreement. For an apartment 2 towns over. Rented under the name Clara Marshall. Paid in cash. Signed 4 months ago. I stared at it for a long time. Because 4 months ago, Claire started coming home later. Said the yoga studio added evening sessions. Said she was getting her head right. But Claire hated yoga. She said the mat smelled like feet. I sat in the dark of that office until nearly 2 a.m., folder in my lap, trying to line up the woman I buried yesterday with the woman who signed that lease. They didn't match. Not anymore. And then came the real question. If Claire had a second life, what else did she leave behind? I drove to the address the next morning. Didn't tell Sophie. Didn't pack a bag. Just left a note on the fridge in my clumsy handwriting. Back by dinner. Be good. 2 towns over. 46 minutes. Long, flat roads lined with skeletal trees, the kind that look like they're always whispering in the wind. I pulled into the lot of a quiet brick complex, the kind you don't notice unless you live there. Faded green doors. Gravel lot. A single rusted bike chained to the stair rail. Apartment 3B. Clara, had signed the lease 4 months ago. Paid 6 months in advance. Cash. I half expected the place to be empty. But when I knocked, the door opened. Not all the way. Just enough to reveal half a face. She was young. Early 20s. Pale skin. Sharp cheekbones. Black hoodie. No makeup. Eyes that had seen too much. Yes, she said. My mouth went dry. I'm looking for Clara Marshall. A flicker. Like a glitch behind the eyes. She's not here. I swallowed. Do you know where she is? The girl stepped back and opened the door wider. You'd better come in. The apartment was small. Sparse. Just a mattress on the floor, a desk with a dead laptop, one framed photo turned face down. You're Ethan, she said. My stomach twisted. How do you? She talked about you. A lot. I stared. You were her friend? A beat of silence. She called me her sister. I blinked. She didn't have a sister. Another silence. Then she said, carefully, she did. Once. I sat down without asking. My knees couldn't hold me. She told me her parents were dead. I whispered. There, she said. To her. I looked up. She said she grew up in some big white house with rules etched into every wall. And a father who only smiled when the neighbors were looking. She ran when she was 16. Changed her name. Reinvented herself. I shook my head. No. Claire grew up in Vermont. Her mom ran a bookstore. She showed me pictures. She showed you versions. The girl folded her arms. She had layers. Depending on who you were, she gave you the layer you could handle. The room was spinning. "Who are you?" She hesitated, then walked to the desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out a small tin box. Inside, photos. Dozens of them. Claire, or Clara, in different clothes, different hair, different cities. In one, she was holding this girl, arms around each other. Same cheekbones. Same eyes. "She was my sister," she said softly. I don't care what name she used. I took a deep breath. Why did she rent this place? She said she needed somewhere to breathe. Did she ever sleep here? She shook her head. Not once. Before I left, the girl handed me an envelope. She left this here 2 weeks ago. Said not to open it unless something happened. I held it like it might detonate. No name on the front. Just a single word written in her handwriting. Forgive. Back in the car, I stared at the envelope for a long time. I didn't open it. Not yet. Because suddenly, I had more questions than answers. And one cold, hollow thought echoing in my head. I buried a woman I loved for 13 years. But I don't think I ever really met her. I waited until Sophie was asleep. Her door closed. The house dark, quiet. The envelope sat on the kitchen table, untouched for hours. I kept circling it like it might bite me. When I finally opened it, the paper inside was thick, almost textured. She'd written it by hand, in blue ink. That careful, looping handwriting I used to love reading on sticky notes by the coffee maker. There were no greetings. Just this. Ethan. If you're reading this, it means I didn't make it back in time. Or maybe I just didn't make it. I never meant to leave you like this. I know you'll want to know why. I'm not sure there's a clean answer, but I owe you something. So here it is. I lived 2 lives. Maybe more. I stopped counting. I was born Claire Marshall, but she died the day I ran from that house. Everything after was patchwork. Identities. Towns. Names. I build a new life like you build a lie, carefully, layer by layer, praying it holds. And for a while, with you, it did. But some ghosts don't go away. They wait. They watch. And eventually, they find a crack. There's a man named Caleb Dorn. If something happened to me, he's involved. Or he knows who is. He's the reason I kept the apartment. The reason I couldn't sleep. The reason I started locking my office door again. I'm sorry I never told you. I thought I could outrun what I used to be. I thought I could keep you clean. You were the only real thing in my life, Ethan. That's not a lie. Forgive me. See, I read it 3 times before I looked up. The house felt different now. Like it had moved half an inch to the left when I wasn't watching. The name, Caleb Dorn, meant nothing to me. But the way she wrote it? Like it should terrify me. I opened my laptop. Searched it. Not much. A few scattered mentions. One arrest from 6 years ago, domestic disturbance, no conviction. Another article from a local newsletter 2 towns away. Dorn security and private investigations now open. Security. Private investigations. Of course. My wife had been followed. The next morning, I made 2 decisions. I would not go to the police, not yet. If Claire hadn't trusted them, I wouldn't either. I would find Caleb Dorn. In person. Face to face. But first, I needed answers from the only other person still standing in Claire's shadow. The girl from the apartment. Her name was June. And something told me. She knew more than she was letting on. I called her. Told her about the letter. About the name. There was a long silence on the line. Then she whispered, "You shouldn't have read that." Before I could ask what she meant, she hung up. And just like that, the past I thought I'd buried with my wife started digging its way back out. The building looked like it had been a dentist's office once. Peeling signage. Frosted glass door with black letters stenciled in outdated font. Dorn Security and Investigations. No bell. Just a buzzer and a mailbox too rusted to open. I buzzed once. A voice answered. Gruff. Yeah. I need to talk to Caleb Dorn. Pause. Who's asking? Ethan Whitmore. Silence. Then, click. Door unlocked. The office smelled like cigarettes, printer toner, and sweat. A small fan buzzed in the corner. Paperwork was stacked in unstable towers along the walls. A corkboard covered in Polaroids, receipts, and what looked like an old road map. Caleb Dorn sat behind a desk that looked like it came from a pawn shop. Late 40s. Shaved head. Thick forearms. Gray hoodie with a cigarette burn near the cuff. He didn't stand when I entered, but he knew who I was. You're Claire's husband, he said flatly. I was. A faint smirk. You still are, technically. I found the letter. She mentioned you. He leaned back. She shouldn't have. She said you'd know what happened to her. That stopped him. He looked at me differently now, not with suspicion, with something closer to pity. Sit, he said. He lit a cigarette, offered me one. I declined. I met Clara before she was Claire, he said. She was 19, sleeping in bus stations, changing names every 2 months. She'd run from something. Took me 6 months to get her to even say the word father without flinching. She ever tell you what happened? I shook my head. He exhaled smoke. She didn't run away. She escaped. The man who raised her wasn't just controlling. He was cruel. Broke her down like a habit. Taught her how to hide. I felt my throat tighten. She never told me. She didn't tell anyone. She survived by compartmentalizing. You were her safe house. Her clean start. She needed that. Then why come to you again? He took a long drag. Because someone found her. Who? His voice dropped. I think it was him. Or someone working for him. He never really stopped looking for her. Clara had been running almost 15 years. But predators don't forget. The room felt like it shrank. She started showing up here a few months ago. Scared. Said she saw a man outside Sophie's school. Same coat her father used to wear. Same walk. Same way of standing still too long. I blinked. You're saying her father tracked her down after all this time? I don't know if it was really him. Or someone he sent. But I put a tail on her. I checked the plates of that car outside the school. Registered to a fake business name. Burn phone. Classic pressure tactics. I swallowed. Why didn't she tell me? Caleb looked at me long and hard. Because if she told you, Ethan, it wouldn't be your life anymore. It'd be hers again. The one she tried to bury. He stood up, walked to a cabinet, pulled out a file. Dropped it in front of me. Inside, photos. Surveillance. Claire walking out of the yoga studio. Claire sitting in a cafe alone, looking over her shoulder. Claire with June, talking fast, face pale. And one more photo. A man, gray coat, standing outside a chain-link fence near a school playground. His face mostly shadowed, but something about the posture sent ice down my spine. I've seen him, I whispered. Caleb nodded. Yeah, so did she. Before I left, he gave me one more thing. A voice message. Claire's voice. Left 3 days before she died. Just tell him I'm sorry, she said, voice shaking. I thought I could protect him. I thought it was just about me. But I was wrong. It's never just about one person when you run. It follows. It always follows. Click. I drove home in silence. But the truth was screaming in my head. My wife didn't die because of a red light. She died because something or someone caught up with her. The shoebox sat in the back of our bedroom closet, under a pile of blankets and a box of Christmas lights. I hadn't touched it in 6 years. Claire called it the ashes box. She gave it to me one rainy night in our 3rd year of marriage. Told me to destroy it. Said it was full of things she never wanted to see again. But when she went to her mother's that weekend, I didn't burn it. I couldn't. Some stupid, nosy part of me wanted to know who she used to be. I never opened it. Until now. The smell was the first thing that hit me. Old paper, dust, something faintly metallic. Inside. Torn up letters. A cheap ring. A train ticket from New Jersey to Albany. A used flip phone with a cracked screen. And a single envelope marked, "Do not open," ever, in red marker. I opened it. Inside was a photo. A group shot. 5 people. Claire was one of them, barely 20, in ripped jeans and a hoodie too big for her. June stood beside her, hand on her shoulder. But my eyes went to the man on the far right. Gray coat. Same posture. Same face. Only younger. And I knew him. Not from her life. From mine. I dropped the photo. It couldn't be. It wasn't Claire's father. It was mine. My breath caught. I scrambled to the hallway, grabbed the family album, flipped through it like a madman. There he was. Same lines around the mouth. Same eyes. The man from my childhood birthday party. The man who vanished when I was 8. I always thought he'd abandoned us. My mother never talked about it. Just said he left. Disappeared into the system. Never came back. But there he was in Claire's photo, with his arm around her. I called Caleb. Told him I found a photo. Sent him a scan. His voice, usually composed, came back tight. That's the same man from the playground photo. I nodded, heart in my throat. Caleb was silent a moment, then said, Ethan, you need to ask yourself something. If Claire knew your father, and she never told you, was it because she didn't trust you? Or because she didn't trust him with you? I barely slept. Tossed and turned all night, the photo sitting like a curse on the nightstand. By morning, I was standing in the garage, digging through old tax records, contracts, Anything that might place my father somewhere in the last 20 years. What I found was a P.O. box, filed under a trust fund, registered in both our names. My name and Claire's. I didn't understand yet what any of it meant. But I knew one thing. My wife didn't just run from her past. She ran toward mine. And I was starting to wonder if we were both part of a story written long before we met. I drove to the P.O. box. It was located inside a rundown postal annex at the edge of town, the kind of place you pass 100 times and never notice. The paint was peeling off the sign. The woman behind the counter didn't even look up when I entered. I gave her the number. She pulled the box. Dusty. Metal. Cold. Inside was a thick manila envelope. No return address. My name was on it. So was Claire's. I opened it right there in the parking lot, in the front seat of my car, hands trembling like I was holding a confession soaked in gasoline. What I found wasn't just paper. It was proof. The first thing, a handwritten will, signed and notarized. From Thomas Whitmore, my father, dated 7 months ago. It left everything. A dormant bank account, some land in upstate New York, and a 1991 safety deposit box, to 2 beneficiaries. Ethan Whitmore, son. Claire Marshall, associate. Associate. That word hit harder than any lie. But what really turned my stomach was the final clause. In the event of my death, this letter shall serve as release of Ethan from the knowledge withheld from him. Claire Marshall has fulfilled her role in keeping that boundary intact. I request no blame fall on her. She was under my instruction. Instruction? She wasn't just running from him. She was working for him. The second thing in the envelope was a photo. Grainy. From a security camera. Claire. My father. Together. In a diner. From last year. He was handing her something. She looked scared. I called Caleb again. Told him what I found. There was a long silence on the line. Then he said, "She lied to you. But not for herself." "What do you mean? You think she came to me just for protection?" "She came to me because she wanted out. She was going to tell you everything. She never did. Because she was waiting for the right moment. But they moved faster." I froze. I think your father's death wasn't natural. And I think Claire knew why. I started pacing the room. If she was under his instruction, then what was I? A pawn? A payoff? Caleb's voice dropped. "No, Ethan. You were the endgame. He kept you clean. She kept you close. He was building something." "What?" "A way to erase himself." That night, after Sophie went to bed, I opened the garage and pulled down the old safe Claire never let me touch. It wasn't locked anymore. Inside, a velvet pouch, and a letter with no name. Just a date. The day before she died. Asterisk, you were never supposed to carry this. But if you found it, then you already are. This isn't a story about what I hid from you. It's a story about what he planned for you. You need to go to the house in Forest Ridge. The one on the deed you never knew you inherited. Everything will make sense there. Or nothing will. Asterisk. I closed the letter. Outside, the wind howled through the trees. Somewhere in the dark, a plan years in the making had just cracked wide open. The house in Forest Ridge was a single-story ranch tucked into a hollow of trees, like it was trying to disappear into the woods. No neighbors for a mile. Gravel driveway. Curtains drawn. I used the key Claire left in the velvet pouch. The door opened too easily. Inside, the air smelled of cedar and thyme. No dust. No cobwebs. It had been cleaned recently. Maintained. Waiting. The furniture was minimal. Neutral tones. Nothing personal. Until I stepped into the back room. That's when the cold slid down my spine. The room was perfectly arranged. On the far wall, a bookshelf full of titles I loved. Books I never told Claire about. A leather chair I recognized from my college dorm. Same tear in the arm. On the desk, a worn notebook filled with my handwriting. Except, I hadn't written it. The handwriting was nearly identical. Copied. Studied. And suddenly it hit me. Claire didn't build this room for me. She built it to learn me. Like a case file. Like a reconstruction of a life. On the wall beside the desk hung a corkboard. Pinned across it, photos, timelines, maps. One photo showed me at age 16 at my mother's old house. Another, me and Claire on our second date. But the oldest photo, I wasn't even born. Claire was a child. And beside her stood my father. Smiling. A red circle was drawn around his watch. Underneath, Claire had written, "Starts with him. Ends with him." I sank into the chair. There was no denying it now. Claire hadn't met my father accidentally. She hadn't just escaped her past. She had stepped directly into mine, maybe because of him. But for what? Control? Redemption? Or something else entirely? In the closet, I found a small safe embedded in the wall, the same kind we had in our garage. Inside, a recording device, a cassette labeled The Real Whitmore, and one envelope, unsealed, marked, for Ethan, if I couldn't stop him. I played the tape first. Claire's voice came through, low and calm, like she knew I'd be listening after everything was already gone. Asterisk, if you found this, he's already dead. But that doesn't mean he lost. Your father was obsessed with legacy. Not money, not fame. Legacy. You were part of his final chapter. He groomed me to make sure you stayed clean. He thought if he couldn't control you directly, he'd build a person who could. Asterisk. I stopped the tape. My chest was burning. The letter was worse. Short. Cold. Asterisk. You were never supposed to know. But if you're reading this, it means I failed. And you'll hate me for it. But know this. I loved you. More than he ever planned for. More than he would have allowed. Asterisk. This room was his idea, but I turned it into my apology. I stood in the middle of that room for what felt like an hour. A room designed to replicate my life. Built by a woman trained to shadow me, but who somehow ended up loving me anyway, and still lied. That night, I didn't drive home. I slept in the chair. And when I woke, the sun was filtering through the curtains. The notebook was still on the desk. I opened it again. The last page was blank, except for one line, written in her unmistakable script. The final piece isn't in here. It's in him. I didn't go back to Forest Ridge the next day. I went to the bank listed in the will. The 1991 safety deposit box had been sitting dormant for decades, but the staff found it immediately. No one had accessed it since it was opened. When they brought it out, it was heavier than I expected. Inside were two items. A mini cassette tape, unmarked. A sealed envelope with my name in handwriting I hadn't seen in over 30 years, my father's. My hands trembled. I left the bank and drove. Not home. Just away. I stopped at a rest area overlooking a stretch of highway. Put the cassette into Claire's old recorder. Press play. Ethan, if you're hearing this, then the machine has moved without me. Which is fine. That was the plan. I was not built for endings. Only beginnings. And you, son, you were the last thing I ever started. I knew early you wouldn't become what I needed. You were too soft. Too kind. Your mother made you that way. And that was her punishment, in the end. Pause. A faint exhale. Claire was the insurance policy. I made sure she'd love you, eventually. She didn't want to. At first, she fought it. But no one can live next to innocence forever without wanting to touch it. She became better than I planned. And that's why I knew she'd try to undo me. So I left this. You'll want to hate her. Maybe you should. But she saved you. And in doing so, she burned the last piece of me still living. Click. The tape ended. Just static now. I couldn't breathe. She became better than I planned. He used people like architecture. Planned their loyalty, their damage, their love. Like functions. Claire wasn't just a pawn. She was his redemption project. And then, his executioner. Because she didn't follow the plan. She fell in love with me for real. And for that, he tried to erase her. I opened the letter last. Just a single page. Asterisk, you were meant to inherit a name. But you became a man. That was never the design. I'm sorry it took losing her for you to see what you were always standing in. A house of mirrors. Asterisk. No signature. Just that. I didn't tell Sophie everything. Not yet. But one night, a week later, as we sat on the porch under a lavender sky, she asked, "Do you miss her every day?" And I answered, "No. Some days I'm just grateful. Because I think she saved me before I even knew I needed saving." A month later, I sold the Forest Ridge house. Donated the money in Claire's name. Burned the notebooks. Buried the envelope under a tree in our backyard. And finally, I stopped looking over my shoulder. Because the monster was gone. But the woman who outsmarted him? She's still everywhere in this house. In the bookshelf. In the smell of cedar. And in my daughter's laugh when she says something Claire would have rolled her eyes at. Not all ghosts are here to haunt you. Some of them stay. Just to make sure you don't forget who you became. After they left,